The inaugural College Football Playoff, CFP, may go down as a landmark in college football history, but not for the reasons anyone anticipated. The controversy began before the first whistle was even blown, and it only intensified after Indiana's crushing 27-17 loss to Notre Dame. The question on everyone's mind is how Indiana even made it into the playoff. While Notre Dame's victory was impressive, the real story lies in the glaring mistake made by the CFP selection committee in choosing Indiana to compete in this postseason event. Indiana's surprising inclusion in the playoff. Indiana's placement in the college football playoff has many scratching their heads. Even before the loss to Notre Dame, there was a growing consensus that the Hoosiers didn't belong. Indiana finished the season undefeated, but did so against an unimpressive slate of opponents, including teams like Florida International, Western Illinois, and Charlotte, all of which had losing records and failed to provide a challenge. Despite this, the CFP committee ranked Indiana as high as 9th in the nation midway through the season. This was an unusually high position for a team that had yet to defeat a single opponent with a winning record. Still, the committee seemed to have penciled in the Hoosiers, despite the fact that their victories came largely against the Big Ten's weaker teams. The final stretch of the season was a make-or-break period for Indiana, and while they did manage to secure a spot in the playoff by defeating a hapless Purdue team, which also fired its head coach, their loss to Ohio State exposed the flaws in their game. The Hoosiers struggled mightily against Ohio State, a team that didn't even make it to the Big Ten championship game, and were thoroughly outclassed. Indiana's high-powered offense, which had been dominant throughout the season, was stifled and only managed a meager 15 points. The Notre Dame game, a reality check for Indiana. When Indiana took the field against Notre Dame in the first round of the playoff, the flaws that were already evident in their previous games came to the forefront. Despite a late surge in the game, when Indiana scored 2 touchdowns in the final 90 seconds, it was clear that Notre Dame was the superior team. The game was essentially decided by halftime, with Notre Dame leading 27-3. For Indiana, the first half was a struggle. The Hoosiers' offense, which had averaged over 40 points per game during the regular season, couldn't get going against Notre Dame's defense. On their opening drive, they failed to capitalize, and by the middle of the second quarter, they had yet to gain any meaningful yards. Their defense, which had been touted as one of the best in the country, was exposed. Notre Dame running back Jeremiyah Love broke free for a college football playoff record 98-yard touchdown run, and the Hoosiers' defense couldn't stop the Irish from gaining yardage when it mattered most. But it wasn't just the defense. The Hoosiers struggled on special teams as well, with a missed onside kick late in the game that sealed their fate. While Notre Dame made mistakes of their own, including settling for field goals instead of touchdowns, the game was never really in doubt. Indiana's late game push was more about Notre Dame letting up than it was about the Hoosiers proving their worth. The selection committee's big mistake. For many, the most perplexing aspect of Indiana's inclusion in the CFP was the selection committee's decision-making process. The committee seemed enamored with Indiana's perfect record, but overlooked the fact that their schedule was one of the weakest in the country. Unlike other playoff teams that had earned their spots through tough schedules and impressive victories, Indiana's victories came mostly against weak opposition. The CFP committee's rankings had already been questioned earlier in the season, especially with Indiana's high ranking despite their lack of quality wins. After their loss to Ohio State, the Hoosiers were dropped to 10th, but still managed to sneak into the playoff picture by defeating a Purdue team that was in disarray. Had the committee not been swayed by Indiana's undefeated record, they might have given the nod to more deserving teams, such as Alabama, Miami, South Carolina, or Ole Miss, all of whom had stronger resumes and played tougher schedules. By the time Indiana got into the playoff, many were already wondering if the committee had made a huge mistake. The Hoosiers' performance against Ohio State was a red flag, and their subsequent play against Notre Dame only confirmed that they didn't belong in the postseason field. The fact that everyone but the committee seemed to know this from the beginning made the situation even more frustrating. Looking ahead, reforming the CFP selection process. While the committee's mistake has already cost Indiana, the broader implications for the CFP are far-reaching. The system that allowed a team like Indiana, who had played an incredibly weak schedule and struggled against quality opponents, to make the playoff needs to be re-evaluated. This is not the first time the selection committee has been criticized for its decisions, but it is one of the most glaring errors in recent history. The current CFP system, while an improvement over the previous bowl structure, is not without its flaws. The selection committee, comprised of 13 members, must ensure that all teams are evaluated fairly and consistently, using more than just win-loss records to make their decisions. Metrics such as strength of schedule, quality of wins, and overall performance in big games should be prioritized over an undefeated record that comes with a weak schedule. As college football continues to evolve and the sport prepares for the new expanded playoff format in 2026, there will likely be calls for change. Officials from the SEC and Big Ten have already acknowledged the need to evaluate all aspects of the playoff process, from the format to the selection committee's composition. The hope is that the committee will learn from the mistakes of the 2024 playoff and take steps to avoid such errors in the future. For now, however, the 2024 college football playoff will be remembered for one major oversight: the inclusion of a team that never truly deserved a spot in the postseason. A new era on the horizon. Looking ahead, the sport's decision-makers are under pressure to implement changes before the new playoff system begins in 2026. With the current media rights deal expiring in 2025, there will be opportunities to reconfigure the selection process, the format, and possibly even the committee's makeup. The goal will be to ensure that only the truly deserving teams earn a shot at the championship, preventing any more Indiana-like inclusions in the future. In the end, the 2024 college football playoff may serve as a valuable lesson for the future, one that highlights the need for fairness, consistency, and a stronger focus on quality over quantity. The sport will no doubt move forward, but the scars from this misstep will linger until real changes are made.